What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. I've drafted 141 teams so far this offseason, so I figured it'd be a good idea to take a look at my exposures, see which wide receivers I've drafted the most. So, my most drafted wide receiver by a mile this season is Ricky Pearsall. I drafted him on 52 of my 141 teams. That is nearly 4.5 times average, and I've taken him on average with pick 147. That is the third pick in round 13. A big part of, why I've taken so much Ricky Pearsall is, of course, this Brandon Ayuk situation. As of recording this, I still don't know if he's been traded or not. And if that does happen, I don't know what wide receiver they got in return. I've always known that Ayuk could remain a 49er, that even if he leaves, they could acquire another star, someone who has a similar skill set to Brandon Ayuk, or someone who's just like a little bit worse, and so it could end up being a wash there. I've just always thought that the risk is worth it, given the upside that Pearsall has. If at any point in the season, whether it was Ayuk or like getting traded away, or Ayuk getting injured, or Debo getting injured, in some way, if he at any point could be the wide receiver 2 on this team, he's got a ton of upside. Now, we did a video titled Finding the Next Puka Nacua, where we looked at the circumstances that kind of led to Puka's breakout to see if we could predict a breakout this season. Not predict someone to break the receiving record for a rookie, but someone to break out in some sort of way. The main takeaway from that video was that you need a lead offense, you need great coaching, you need quality quarterback play, and then of course the wide receiver themselves needs to exceed expectations. With Pearsall, I think he can have all of those. The offense, the coaching, the quarterback play, it's all there. And realistically, I do think the community has been too off of Pearsall as a prospect. My model, and very likely all other production-based models, don't love him, but that's more because of the offense he was on. Sure, the production profile isn't amazing for Pearsall, but had he been on a team that had a lot more production to go around, he would have produced better numbers. He might be the best route runner in this draft class. He was amazing versus man coverage. He creates separation. He doesn't drop passes. He profiles as a player that a head coach is going to look at and be like, I love this kid. I want to scheme looks to him because he's just a great NFL wide receiver. And if you look at the ADPs on Underdog of the round 1 wide receivers, the wide receivers we are thinking are the most talented, right? NFL teams are thinking are the most talented. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. at 13th overall, Malik Neighbors, 25th overall, Xavier Worthy, 64th overall, Rome Odunze, who we'll get to, at 67th overall, Brian Thomas Jr., 77th overall, drop way down to Ricky Pearsall, 147th overall, and then Xavier Legette, 148th overall. So you've got 5 going in the top 80, really the top 78, and then you got Pearsall lumped in with Legette, who was a much worse prospect, also lands on the Panthers, not the 49ers, the team that was ranked 2nd in points per game versus last in points per game. A pretty big difference in the landing spot of those two teams. So I do think people are just like sleeping on the talent. This is a round 1 wide receiver going to one of the best coached offenses in the NFL that can make players highly efficient if they just get any sort of volume. And we might have their wide receiver 1 leaving the team. Again, it could not happen. They could also trade for, I've seen rumors about Devonta Adams, that they could do the deal with the Steelers, that they're not going to get Pickens back in that deal, that maybe they go after Devonta Adams. That can happen. These things can happen. But I still think it's worth the risk to me because the talent is there, and maybe not in week 1, week 2, week 3, but at some point in the season, I do think Pearsall is going to get an opportunity to command a solid target share on this team. And with how good of a coach team this is, no matter what happens with Brandon Ayuk, I think he's going to have opportunity. 1 injury, 1 trade, and he's an amazing breakout pick that late. My second most drafted wide receiver is Diontae Johnson. If you follow the channel for a while, you should pretty much know that was coming. I've taken him on 36 of my 141 teams. That is 25.5%, a little over 3 times average. Again, bet on Diontae since he joined the league. It's been kind of up and down because the quarterback play has been so terrible at times. But I think people are underrating him because of the offense. Literally 60 seconds ago, I pointed out how the Panthers were the lowest scoring team in the NFL last season, how, Bryce Young looked terrible. Like, I pointed that out being like, there's a bit of a different landing spot here we get versus Pearsall. So I understand people's hesitation with the Panthers. But I have taken Diontae Johnson on average with pick 75. That is the early 7th round. In redraft leagues, the value there is incredible. It goes in round 8 on ESPN, CBS, NFL. So it's not like you're spending, a top 3 round pick. But Diontae's so good. I mean, he ran every single route at an above average success rate last season, cleared the 81st percentile versus man, zone, press coverage, can play all 3 wide receiver positions. They brought him in to be the X, which is a very important position in a Dave Canales offense. And it's just time and time again, whenever anyone in the coaching staff talks about Diontae Johnson, they're like, yeah, that kid's the focal point of our offense. He's going to be our X. He's going to be the player we lean on as a team. I also think Dave Canales is a quarterback whisperer. He was the quarterback coach for Geno Smith when he broke out in 2022. He was the offensive coordinator for the Bucs last season when Baker Mayfield broke out. These were not quarterbacks entering those seasons anyone thought was going to be any good. Everyone was down on Geno in 2022 and Baker last season. Both of them had breakout seasons under Dave Canales. I admit, yes, the Panthers were bad last season. Bryce Young was bad last season. I think the coaching change can help that. Also, even with how bad they were, a 33-year-old Adam Thielen commanded 137 targets and was a wide receiver 11 through week 11 before the wheels, started to fall off because, again, he was 33 years old, 34 years old this season. It's Diontae time. He can legitimately finish top 5, top 7 in targets this season. And it's like no one cares because he's being drafted outside the top 40 wide receivers on every platform. I'm probably too low on him, only having 3x the field. I would prefer it be, 4x, 5x the field. Third most drafted wide receiver is A.D. Mitchell. I've drafted him on 30 of my 141 teams, just over 21%, about 2.5x the field. Now, I've said this in a few videos, and I've mentioned him in a lot of videos. So you guys have seen the kind of like roller coaster I've had with A.D. Mitchell this offseason. I went from like really early in the process, before the draft. My initial research, looking at A.D. Mitchell, I was like, okay, I like him, right? I really liked him in that process. I started to back off a little bit once I ran the production model. It didn't love him, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to back off my take just a little bit. I backed off even more when the community was starting to like really hype him up as someone who like couldn't fail. I was like, no, there are reasons that this kid can absolutely fail. Then he falls in the draft. But I think because of that, and because of potentially the landing spot, I'm not sure there, but people started to like talk about him a little bit less. His ADP has dropped to a point where I started to look at it and I was like, oh wait, I actually want to grab a ton of this kid because I love the Colts. I love Anthony Richardson. I love this offense so much. He was just a very easy way to just gain exposure to the offense. But then we have the camp reports that come out that Josh Downs is crushing it. Josh Downs is the clear-cut wide receiver 2, that A.D. Mitchell wasn't even beating out Alec Pierce. And so I back off that take a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's drop in the rankings a little bit. Let's bring up Josh Downs because it is looking like Josh Downs is going to be really good. Let's make sure we don't have 40% of A.D. Mitchell. But then we see Josh Downs suffering the high ankle sprain, which means he's going to miss the rest of camp, likely some weeks into the season. That's a big boost for Mitchell. On the surface, you're going to be like, how does that matter at all, right? Because if Downs returns in week 3, 4, even if he returns in week 5, it's like you probably in a redraft league wouldn't even be playing A.D. Mitchell. And so when you'd be hoping he can develop, start to hit his stride, Downs is going to come back. Plus the fact that, the reports were, again, he wasn't beating out Alec Pierce. We know he's not that good, Alec Pierce. Here's my take on that, though. Like, we know for a fact, again, he's better than Alec Pierce. Like, even if they're kind of competing in camp right now, A.D. Mitchell is a better wide receiver than Alec Pierce. I will put money on that. He really just needs time to develop. He needs those reps in practice, needs that time with Anthony Richardson to develop as a player, develop that chemistry. Now, with Downs done for basically likely the rest of training camp, he's going to get that opportunity. He's going to get a lot more looks. They're going to utilize him in the slot more. They're going to utilize him in different positions. He's going to learn the offense much quicker. it increases the chance of him having a breakout earlier in the season. So I know it's probably annoying hearing a million different updates about this Colts wide receiver battle, but at this point, I am back on AD Mitchell, and I don't expect to be out on him anymore, given his mid-11th round ADP on Underdog, late 13th round ADP in redrafts. Is he a lock to pay off the ADP? Of course not. But given how many plays this offense is going to run, given how good I think Mitchell can be, again, there are warts in his profile. He's not a lock to be good. I lean towards thinking he's going to be. I think it's worth the risk that late. I do want to reiterate that he's not a perfect prospect, that he could for sure bust. But there are so many reasons to be excited about him as a prospect that if he can develop quickly, which I think now he has the opportunity to do in camp, he can emerge as the number 2 option in this passing attack. And this is a team that I expect to score a lot of points, that I expect to run a ton of plays. They're going to run no huddle a ton. They are going to lean pass heavy. There's just going to be a lot of volume on this team to where if he hits his ceiling, you're going to love having taken him that late. And if he doesn't, look at the wide receivers going in that general range. No one is a lock to produce. I want the upside there. And hold on to that take. Hold on to what I just said, because it is to an even higher degree with my 4th most roster player, Jameson Williams. I've drafted Williams on 24 of my 141 teams. That is a little bit more than twice as much as average. I've taken him on average with pick 90. That is a mid 8th round ADP. Redraft, you're looking at like the 9-10 turn. Again, I said hold on to that take there, being like, look at the players going around them. I want the upside. I feel confident in the first 3, right? The first 3 wide receivers that we talked about in this video, I feel very, very good about them. I won't pretend like Jameson Williams is someone that does not come without risk. The man literally has 36 touches in his career, and that is counting the playoffs, counting multiple playoff games. The thing is, on those 36 touches, he does have 7 touchdowns, and it almost seems repeatable. I know that's far too high of a rate to actually be repeatable, but when you watch him play and you watch the touches that they're giving him, you're like, yeah, a kid this explosive on an offense this good, getting scheme touches to develop big plays, he's going to have a significantly higher touchdown rate, touchdowns per touch, significantly higher than basically everyone else in the NFL. My general rationale for taking a chance on Jameson Williams is when we look at historical success rates at running back and wide receiver, pretty much a lock round 1, round 2. If they don't get injured, they're at least a start-worthy player. Are they a good pick? Not guaranteed, but you got like a 90% chance of hitting on a start-worthy player, someone you can put into your starting lineup. Drop down to round 3 and 4, about 70%. Round 5, 6, we're looking at about 50-50. Once we hit round 8, round 9, you're looking at about 25%. And again, that is the number that it is a like start-worthy player, not that they are an amazing player. So if success drops off that much into round 8, it means that everyone is risky. Even if you don't think that they are, everyone in that range is risky. Everyone has a low floor, even if it doesn't seem like it. So instead of picking the quote-unquote safe player that has no ceiling, understand that's just a no-ceiling player. That is not a safe pick. It is just a low floor, low ceiling pick. Why would you not shoot for the moon? Why not draft someone who was the former 12th overall pick, is actually younger than a few rookie wide receivers this season, even though he's going in to year 3, who plays on a top 5 offense, on a team that is going to be definitely top 5, likely top 3 in like passing yards, passing touchdowns. They're going to be a very good offense this season on a team that did not draft a wide receiver to compete with him, did not sign a free agent to compete with him. Every chance they've gotten, they have talked about how much he has developed, how much more involved he's going to be. He's the locked-in wide receiver 2 on one of the best offenses in football, is one of the most explosive players in the NFL, and will be playing in a dome 14 of 17 weeks this season, including 13 of the first 14 weeks of the year. So he could for sure bust. I'm by no means saying he's a lock to produce, but the upside is glaringly obvious, and I don't think we should be passing on that level of upside when we know he's going in a range where there are 0 locks at running back or at wide receiver. Having this much upside makes him a must draft for me. My fifth most rostered wide receiver is Odunze. I've taken him on 24 of 141 teams. So again, a little more than double the field. And I've taken him on average with pick 66 on Underdog. And in redraft, great value going in the mid-8th round. Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., they get all the hype, and deservingly so. They're unbelievable prospects. They are set up to dominate the target shares on their respective offenses. But in a few days, both of them are going to have an ADP in round 2. And honestly, I don't think it would be crazy to suggest that Odunze is only like 5% worse of a prospect than these two players. If we look at my wide receiver model, it suggests that Neighbors is about 13% worse of a prospect than Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Odunze is only 4% worse than Malik Neighbors. But by ADP, Neighbors goes 1 round later, or at times less than 1 round later than Marvin Harrison Jr. Odunze goes 4 rounds later than Malik Neighbors. So the question becomes, is his situation that much worse? Again, Odunze went 3 picks later in the NFL draft, with some in the Giants organization preferring Rome Odunze to Malik Neighbors. They're very similar prospects, so any gap in ADP needs to be entirely based on situation, or at least virtually entirely based on situation. Yes, Neighbors is going to dominate the target share on the Giants, but the Bears project to score 3 more points per game than New York. I have them projected to throw the ball 3 more times per game as well. That's over 50 extra targets. That's a potential for 8 to 10 extra touchdowns on offense. I actually wanted to test out. I was like, okay, what would Odunze's target share need to be in Chicago for him to match the production of Neighbors on the Giants? I have Neighbors projected right behind his Underdog ADP, way ahead of Redraft. Redraft, it's ridiculous. Redraft, Malik Neighbors is the must draft of all must drafts, right? On Underdog, I have him projected right after his ADP. So I'm not saying that I have Neighbors projected poorly. My projection for Malik Neighbors at that spot is a 25.35% target share on the Giants. It is 187 half PPR points. For Rome Odunze to match that production in half PPR, he would only need a 21.75% target share on the Bears. Now, I have Odunze at 18.75% of the targets, which is why, to be clear, he should be going later in drafts than Malik Neighbors. But my point is, a 21.75% target share is well within the range of outcomes for Rome Odunze. And if you had to pick one of these two teams, the Giants or the Bears, to have a breakout season and really blow past our expectation, it is obviously the Bears. So again, I do not want this to come across as saying you shouldn't draft Malik Neighbors. You absolutely should. And if you are in a redraft league, he is on my must draft list. I dropped that 2 days ago on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. In redraft, Malik Neighbors is a must draft. I am just saying Rome Odunze is also an unbelievable prospect, and there should not be a 4-round difference between the two of them in fantasy. And again, if I think Neighbors is a strong pick and there's a 4-round gap between the two, and I think Odunze is basically just as good, it means Odunze is also an incredible pick. So those are my 5 most rostered wide receivers through 141 drafts this summer. If you want to see my complete list of must draft players at all positions geared towards redraft leagues, you can see that on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I'll be back tomorrow with another mock draft Monday, and then live Tuesday, 6:30 Eastern, to do an Underdog draft and answer any questions you guys have. So please come to that with questions. So if you watched this far, be sure to leave a like, really helps me out. And if you're new here, why not click subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any free content. But that, my friends, is the end of this one, and thanks for watching.